This pocket was like that.
Ma'am, please have your attention. Thank you. Does anybody, we're asking folks if they have a story regarding 3396 they want to tell. You get 2 minutes to tell that story. No, swipe. You get 2 minutes to tell the story. And we have a timer over here in the corner. Yes, sir. Come on up. And it must be approved.
Y'all might be throwing apples at me. Please stand up. Two of these guys. Command Sergeant McGavin. Please don't, you don't have to stand up, sir. I'm still scared of you. My story is the first time he shook my hand, his fingers came to heal. Because he would just simply, what are you going to do to fix it? What do you want me to do? Fix it! Got it! And run! Jump through windows, cross waters, fight out, get whatever. This gentleman, when I joined the 3396, I joined it in late 1980, served through there through 1981. I had come off of, my history is I joined the Army in 1976, June 19th, and I was 19 years old, so we're now talking in the 80s. It was a unit. I'd never been in reserves before. I was used to discipline and doing things. Was with them, left in 82. I got married for the first time. A friend of mine said, don't worry about your wife. 3 combat tours with 3 ex-wives. Okay, let's so when we're talking about the 50-50, do they have? Are they going to show up and go? I want 75% of it. Command Sergeant Major McGaffey taught me when we got into the 257. We were what, 143rd? And we laughed about that. This is the PT instructor from hell. Excuse me. On a 2-mile run, he could do it backwards and lap us. You know you're in trouble when he's doing this and going like, yo, hey, you're going to lose. You're failing. These two taught me a lot about, I was in combat arms. You cannot run. You cannot hide from me. And I will destroy you. That is my expertise, and it's continued on into 2017. Okay? But these guys taught me movement control. The 257, When the towers came down, we were in, no, you'd already finished your advanced course. I was in my advanced course in Fort Eustis, Virginia. The towers came down, everything got grounded. I was in the 3 shop, 257. His expertise was that they actually took him up to Atlanta and he rewrote regulations in regards to how we do our business. This is his expertise. He knew it so much. This is my mentor, which is where I'm going to on this. He knew that so much that the Department of the Army sent him there to review the regulations, and he helped to rewrite them. Am I lying or am I not? That's true. This guy was another one that taught me how to come out of combat arms into the movement control business and how to do the things. They are my bestest friends. I never thought that I would see any of you. Please sit down, Command Sergeant Major. I know I'm going to be out doing push-ups. Okay? So we stayed with the 257. Once the towers came down, they took me out of the 3 shop and put me into the NCOIC. We deployed. We got caught up in Operation Noble Eagle. We wrote the 257 Movement Control Battalion with the experts and with all of these people, and Command Sergeant Major, I believe at that time you had become the Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army Reserve. So he was serving under a 2-star. So having him as my mentor and knowing that if anything that I had to come across or we had to come across, there's our gun. That's our top gun. Okay? And again, I'm scared of it. I'm 62 years old and I'm still scared of it. I think I can outrun him, but I'm not sure. $25 if somebody block the door. When I take off, you all stop him. $25 into the Okay? We wrote the entire operation order for that. From that we came back and then there was a slice. This is when Afghanistan was nuked out. There was 22 of us that went there. We were in Uzbekistan. Camp Stronghold Freedom. Camp Stronghold Freedom was predominantly a SOCOM, Spec Ops. They had spooks, they had the whole kit and caboodle. And this is where I'm going to stop. I'm not going to get into my whole military career because most of you will go to sleep. So I'm making Kathy. It's going to kill me. But the one thing that I have to say is that, and you've seen Breakfast Club, and this is what I'm saying, to see all of you guys, and some of you I've met and some of you I haven't. It's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood. You could go to Walmart and I can see him. I'll run from him. If he's in the sporting, he's good. I know he's looking for a rifle to shoot me. The one thing that I'm going to leave this as is that no matter where we go, we are a family. Amen. We are different from the civilians. We are different from family history. We know each other. All you have to do is go, you look like you were in the Army. Yes, friends for life. Amen. I got a smoker. Come, I will feed you. So with that, I love each and every one of you, and it is a family. I just retired in April 1st of 2017. I spent a tremendous amount of time. I've got 4 combat tours and 3 in support of Afghanistan and Iraq. There are 5 countries that the United States Army's travel agency has been fired. Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan. They said, hey, we got beaches. You'd like to go swimming? They didn't tell me there was no water. And 5 of those countries wanted to kill us. Okay? Breakfast Club is my last statement.
Thank you.
You know, we had a great group of drill sergeants in our unit. And I had a Gainesville barber tell me one time. He said, I knew every time y'all had a weekend drill. He said, because my barber business was fantastic. And that's because the drill sergeants was marching them guys over there during the long hair days and getting them sheared like sheep. Thank you, drill sergeant.
Anybody else?
Well, I got some more.
We believe you.
I'm a wife of one of you guys, and hush. I want to thank your the support staff from the family, because we lost our health insurance because of a miscommunication in checks being mailed, and I was pregnant with our last child, and because of part of the staff saying, hey, take your wife and go down to this facility and this facility and tell them you need this, this, and this. Our child ended up being taken, our insurance didn't pay for the hospital, but we got the support that we needed in that aspect so that I could go to the hospital not thinking, how are we gonna pay for this baby? But I also want to know, how do y'all manage to set your dates every weekend that there's a family function going on, that they got out of going to this thing?
That's communication. When you got something to do with mama, let us know.
Get me out of it.
Larry, I have one point.
Okay.
We had an instructor come. I don't remember what the class was. And I think he was like a captain, might have been a major. And we were all in there down on the range down there. And you know how they try to liven the class up. Guy said, a lady called the unit. And I guess the specialist answered the phone. She wanted to speak to whoever was in charge. And they said, he wanted to know, well, you want the CO or do you want the first sergeant? She said, I want whoever's in charge. So the CO was, I think he was in his office. They finally found him. And they said, well, take a message. Went back to take a message. I need to talk to him. This is urgent. So when they got him, told him to come on. CO came to the phone. Hello, ma'am, I'm Colonel Fumel. And she said, I just had to call, because my husband be down there with y'all. And those dues that you require him to pay, we can't pay him anymore. He's not coming any longer. So apparently, somebody telling their wife they were having to pay to go. She didn't know he was getting upset.
But during those 10 years, we used to go to different places every summer. Bliss, Leonard Wood, Jackson. And the thing that, we're talking about family here today, the thing that sticks in my mind the most over all those years is everywhere we went in the summertime, they were really glad when we left. Because we showed up every year. I mean, this is a reception battalion. We showed them up, the regular army, everywhere we went, didn't we? They always said that. So y'all did a really, really good job.
Hoorah! That's my good friend, Steve Schweikert, and I promise you, it'd be real difficult to find a better guy than him.
Amen. Amen.
Great guy. We had wonderful and great time. The gentleman that I have the honor and privilege of introducing you to, we just put a few words on the paper. We laugh because, we need to get it straight, get it right. Okay. 9 pages later. But that's an honor to what he has accomplished.
Yeah, amen.
And I mean, and he has went further than any enlisted person who came through our program. To say that he was the best soldier I know, and I guarantee if I took a poll out here at our levels, everybody would say the same thing. Look, he stood for dignity, honor, integrity, and don't answer his phone call. You know why? because he'll talk you into going anywhere in the world. I promise you. When he went to the Pentagon, he called me, Larry, you ought to come up here with me. I said, no, I ought not. Last time I answered your call, you sent me across the water with 9 other people, and we lived in Expandover for 9 months. Well, you need to volunteer for that mission. That was Iraq. And I got a friend here who was over there as well, you know, and it just is an honor and a pleasure to know this man. As a friend, one, but two, as a soldier. He is enlisted in the Soldier Hall of Fame. Now, who else, how many of us can say that? I don't know anybody else. He is a family man, dedicated to doing what he needs to do with his family and for his family. And what he tells me is, I just want to sit down and watch the snowdrops fall. I told him that'd be a long time. They're not falling right now. If you would open your program and just glance on the left-hand side. His military career began April 2nd, 1970. He was drafted in the U.S. Army. When he retired, he grew up in Gainesville, Florida, born in Birmingham. He retired. He came back to Gainesville with his wife and 3 children. He rose to the rank of Command Sergeant Major of the Army, which is responsible, Reserve, which is responsible for every enlisted soldier that's in the Army Reserve, period. Period. Doesn't matter which country they're in. Some people are anointed, some people are appointed, and some people have it thrust upon them. And you can separate most people with that. But with him, he has all 3. He was appointed by Command Sergeant Major of the U.S. Army Reserve to be the Command Sergeant Major of the U.S. Army Reserve. He was anointed because God chose to do the service that he had. And it's a miracle, in essence, to be and see and do. But when God appoints you, you know that you're going to be in place. And the third thing is, it was thrust upon him. Now, I can say this about it being thrust upon him. He was a first sergeant in operations, a command sergeant major. He went through every level. So it wasn't given to him. He earned it. He earned it from the time he was in Vietnam all the way back. But this is the thing about him, is that he understood enough that when you receive a blessing, you got to bless some other folk. And you can look around this room at these sergeant majors you got in here, your E8s and all of that. When we went down to Michelle Sessions' retirement, guess what? I just looked in that room. There were at least 4 to 5 to 6 female sergeant majors that were appointed under his auspices. So he was not looking at he was just looking at whether you're good. And do you have the opportunity to be great? And if you look around here at my coworker and myself here today, we are a direct result of his mentorship. And so are many of you who are in this room. This is the thing he would always say. He'd say, you know what? You're either going to lead, follow, or do what? Get the hell out of the way. And he didn't mind you getting the hell out of the way. He'd tell you, I love you, but you can't stay here. I have heard him, and I've been with him when he's had that. But he understands that we need leadership that's defined and understands what the missions are and are ready to move forward. And that is him. His civilian credentials are innumerous. I won't go through all of them with you at this point, but I just want you to understand that even after he finished, and we have 2 ambassadors up here for the U.S. Army, and that's a highly exclusive position to be in. But again, it was not thrust upon him. He earned it. And I'm very thankful to know him as the soldier that he is. I won't be calling him now because, you know, I know that, like I said, when you're on active duty, you call him, you're going to get an answer. And the answer may not be what you think. I had the pleasure of being in the combat zone, the war zone, and running into these 2 guys down here, going in, as a result of us being over there. And what happens is you create a linkage, you create a bond, you create a nucleus, and that grew out of this unit right here, out of here. Now, we all thought we was just going to be checking in soldiers. No. We were going to be checking on soldiers, in soldiers, and with soldiers, doing what this country needed to have done. And I'm proud to say that he is the guy that he is the man that he is, and he still continues to influence soldiers in his everyday life. My good friend, I introduce you, Leon Caffey, Command Sergeant Major, retired U.S. Army.
Thanks, Larry. Major Kretzer and Mrs. Kretzer, Colonel Bob Whippert, Colonel Wade Townsend, Lieutenant Colonel Ron Cerncy, and distinguished officers, my fellow command sergeant majors and sergeant majors, my fellow NCOs and family. It's an honor and a pleasure for my wife and I, Sylvia, to be here with you this afternoon. I joined the Army Reserve in September 1974. The reason I joined the Army Reserve wasn't because I was that crazy about a uniform. To help me with a car payment. Reading the local paper. And I stood in the back rank. At 11:45, there was a formation. Again, they called a roll call. The mess personnel had prepared lunch. The biggest joy was watching the mess sergeant eat a gallon of ice cream and 2 dozen oatmeal cookies. At 1 o'clock, we had another formation. Again, everybody splattered. Some of them had second jobs. They came back at 4 o'clock, and those of us who remained in the building were tasked with detail, mopping the floors and dumping the trash. So my first weekend, I felt cheated because I accomplished absolutely nothing. But that was parallel with what the Army Reserve did. To whom a little is given, a little is expected. We went to Fort McClellan, Alabama, to take over a reception battalion. We was placed in the buildings that wasn't needed for human capacity. They did not expect very much of the 3396. That changed after my first drill and my first summer camp. They started bringing in a high quality of soldiers like Adrian Allen and Cassandra Martin, Thelma Lewis, Helen Hart, Beverly and Bridget. There were professional soldiers. Shirley Richardson. They had civilian job where they were tasked with greater responsibility. And Steve Schweikert was my first company clerk. College educated. But like Steve said, When we went to summer camp, the 3396 proved one thing. That we wasn't a bunch of dumb hillbillies from Gainesville, Alabama, Gainesville, Florida. And that we could chew gum and walk at the same time. That we could read the organization manual, and we could perform at a higher level than the active component.
All right, come on.
One of the greatest joy that I had once I became a command sergeant major is paving the way for other NCOs. Some of you, I bumped heads with you over a period of time. Some of you, I tasked you to the limit. Because I knew very well that you could perform at a high level if you was only given the opportunity. With opportunity, I gave you the support to go with that opportunity. Sam Getty and Carolyn Harden became first sergeant of the headquarters company, 143rd Transcom. That is not an easy job. A lot of lonely nights, Carolyn. A lot of late nights. She and I will be walking in separate hotel rooms at 9:30 at night to be back over there at 4 o'clock in the morning. But that's what the 3396. You don't know this. I learned a lot from each and every one of you. From Theodore Davis, who I picked at because I respected. The mess steward, the mess personnel, who was the hardest working people in the building. Roosevelt Jones. Roosevelt Jones, a person of tremendous integrity and professionalism. I respected him an enormous amount. Richard Harrison, person that I got to know very well. Professionally as well as personally. I made E6. When I made E6, J.C. Davis and I and Herb Brown independently got called to the command sergeant major's office. The question to me is, Sergeant Caffey, how much insurance do you need? I reply as of being puzzled there for a minute. Command Sergeant Major, I don't need any insurance. That's something my wife normally would handle. And last time I had a conversation with her, we was already insured. His reply to me in a very stern manner is that if you're gonna stay here, you need to buy some insurance. I didn't buy the insurance, neither did I stay there. I left and went to a unit in Jacksonville. Got promoted E7 in Jacksonville, making that long travel back and forth. Came back, was promoted to Master Sergeant by Colonel Bob Woodford. And what's typically for a promotion of a senior NCO, the Command Sergeant Major will take an active role in it. The Command Sergeant Major stood at the back of the formation with his head looking to the ground. I'm assuming, simply an assumption on my behalf, and you know how assumptions are, that he was still upset with me because I refused to buy some insurance. But that instilled in me a will to make so soldiers, regardless of where you come from, had a fair chance to perform to your highest level of potential. I've carried that throughout my career. I went from being after graduating from the Sergeant Major Academy, become a Staff Sergeant Major at the 143rd Transcom. Before that, I met a gentleman that was at the 3396, Major Dave Kretzer. In him, I saw a person, a professional soldier, a person who had the ability to relate to every soldier within that command. And I said to myself, Seth, this is an exceptional soldier. There's no limit on his potential. I had the distinct honor. We had a command nowhere near the capacity and the professionalism of the 3396. It took me one drill to realize we had a problem. From the senior NCO to the bottom. They got a saying in New Orleans, nothing is legit. Everything is done on the table. The gentleman, the sergeant major that's enrolled in the sergeant major course, had one female sergeant major, academic excellent, was taking their exams for him. I said, are you taking their exam? That's the way we do it in New Orleans. Come here, sergeant major. I said, from this point on, you are not taking the exam. I'm calling the Sergeant Major Academy, and all those exams that you've taken are invalid. They can start over, or they can retire, because Kathy loves them, but they can't stay here. Because I need the best qualified senior NCO to lead the young minds that, like Shirley, Thelma, and Michelle that I had at the 3396 and eventually at the 257. Those soldiers was yearning for leadership. We deployed to Fort Polk, Louisiana. General Cress had already left. At Fort Polk, I lost all my senior sergeant majors. For medical reason, for personal reason, and for gross incompetence. I got to Kuwait. General Kretzer had 43,500 soldiers. I arrived on the C-5 and he was standing on the tarmac at 1 o'clock in the morning with a hot cup of coffee. He said, Command Sergeant Major, welcome to Kuwait. And we took off. For the first time that Army Reserve soldier was given the recognition was Desert Storm. Not any time before had the Army Reserve soldier given that type of responsibility. We would go to Fort Bliss, Louisiana, and Mr. Sartain would get the rod and gun club, and the mess sergeant with all of the stakes. We would invite all the active component. That was it. But they didn't realize the intelligence, the professionalism, and the knowledge of the soldiers in the 3396. When I was in Kuwait, the active component always challenged you. I got a call from one of my staff sergeant majors, said, hey, Command Sergeant Major, some AC soldiers, NCOs, want to have a conference with you. Sure. About 300 filed into a room, and their point was that the living arrangement. We had hard billing, but we were stacking them forward to a billing. And they felt, based on Army regulation, that they was entitled to that space, one soldier. They walked in, had a spokesman, Command Sergeant Major, we want to talk to you about our living arrangement. Go, soldier. He said that we think you're in a violation, and we want to demand that you correct it as soon as possible. The only person to direct me to do anything has been that gentleman over there. But I withheld my anger and listened to their grievance. At the conclusion of each and every one speaking, I brought my G4 sergeant major up. I asked him, how many shelter have, tent pegs do you have in G4? He said, Sergeant Major, we got more than we really need. I told each one of those NCOs, your grievance is invalid. We are at war. Your grievance is invalid. What I can do for you, if you don't like your sleeping arrangement, go see my G4 sergeant major, find you a buddy, get you 2 shelter half, some rope, some tent pegs, and there's a whole lot of desert out there. The room was quiet. No one said anything. I said, is there anything else we need to discuss? No, Command Sergeant Major. But I tell you about the challenges of the active component, challenging the reserve, because that's a real thing. It's a real thing. Because they felt that we was incapable of doing what they do. And I would tell them, my NCO are better educated, have more professional job, and they can do two things at once. Your NCO, their whole focus is on one thing, and they haven't perfected that as yet. I can't change who I am. I'm my father's son, and he would have it no other way. If you allocate your standards and your morality and your professionalism to others, you become an empty shell of a person. By being that, you are no value to anybody. General Kretzer and I have had many years serving together. He's my best friend. He's my foxhole buddy. And I can tell you, it get lonely at the top. He and I used to fly to New Orleans at my own dime, rent a car, drive to Belle Chase, Louisiana, get a barracks and stay there we had to pay for. I was a Command Sergeant Major. I could afford it. When I was selected to be the Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army Reserve, where I had 220,000 soldiers, 50 states, 5 territories, and 40 countries around the world. From California to Guam, from American Samoa, from Hawaii. Soldiers that you never observed before. The American Samoans are combat soldiers. They won't fit your height and weight scale. But you cannot run them. And you cannot fight them. The 100th Division is the most decorated division during World War II. And one thing I learned by going to American Samoa and Guam and Saipan and Hawaii, there's a tremendous amount of pride with that organization. Once we was at Camp Blanding, all he wanted to do was play basketball. We used to go up for weapons qualification. Jerry, he went to school on an academic and a basketball scholarship. Belinda called me and said, Leon Larry gonna throw away 17 years. Because you know the thing about Larry, he's dependable, he's an honorable person, and I love him dearly. But Larry has one problem, his tardiness. Larry will be late to everything. And Larry would get late to my formation and beg y'all not to tell me. But I put the heat on him.
All right.
Quitting wasn't an option.
That's right.
So you would go out on 301 down from his home and you could see Larry jogging down 301. Because he understood to be the best, you had to train like the best. And I wasn't accepting anybody that couldn't do what I was capable of doing. Not to the magnitude, but I didn't want to have anyone that couldn't pass the APFT. General Kretzer and I took APFT with the soldiers. When we got to New Orleans, the senior NCOs took their APFT on Friday. They just papered it. I changed that. And guess what? A lot of them failed. Again, Kathy, love you, but you can't stay here. When I got to the Pentagon, I took the APFT with the Chief of Staff of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army. My soldier did likewise. If you had a problem, medical, deal with it. If you had a consumption problem, you deal with it. It's your problem. But I always felt that I couldn't lead you, that I was incapable of doing what you could do yourself. And I know I bump heads with a lot of you. But if I want to push you to be what I know you could become. And Sam can tell you, it wasn't an option that Sam could not be the first sergeant down at 143rd. My direction to Sam and Carolyn is do what you're trained to do. Because I know you come from the 3396 and you are fully aware of what you can do. I'm gonna tell you a little story about General Kretzer. He's a modest man, and he won't talk about himself, but I will. He had 43,500 soldiers in the desert. The first time in the history of the Army Reserve, the Army Reserve 2-star had that much responsibility. And the 3-star Army 3rd Army commanders came to him when there was a problem with the rest of his general officers. It's about professionalism. It's about can-do. It's about being prepared. And God knows, sir, we didn't know Monday from Sunday. And we had 18 hours, sometimes 21 hours. And I was scared for this guy in King Davis when they started lodging Scud and missiles after shock and awe. He was at the port and decided to go down and check on here in Kane, and I walked in and it smelled like a Mexican restaurant. They was cooking so much food, I was afraid something had happened to them. But it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. And JC, it's good to see you.
Good to be here.
And Jerry Patton. Remember I told you he was my nemesis? After setting off that flare, and I get blamed for it by the police that kept blaming me, Jerry decided to go back on active duty. I called him, I said, Jerry, where are you? I put the pin gun. He said, Huntsville, Alabama. I said, what do you do? He said, I go to work about 9, I leave about 1:30. How many days? Well, you got to work about 3.5 days a week. Jerry was there for about 12 or 15 years. And he called me and said, Cap, I'm going to retire. He retired on Friday. Monday, he went back as civilian doing the same thing he was doing before. Jerry, I love you, man. But Larry mentioned about Sergeant Majors. And the Army Reserve Command, they had this thing called USARC. USARC, AR First Com was in St. Louis, and OCAR was in D.C. And what I found, soldiers like Michelle in the AGR program and other AGR soldiers in the field never got promoted, never got the chance to go to school because they kept the dollars inside. E6 from AR First Com would go from St. Louis to Atlanta, pick up E7, stay there 2 years, go up to D.C., pick up E8, and go straight back to St. Louis. Never deployed. So I went to St. Louis. When I walked in, they had a security team waiting on me. I got a top secret SCI clearance. There's nothing in that command that I'm not fully aware of. They want to direct me away from soldiers, so I didn't have opportunity to talk to them. I had spies at AR First Com. So I went, he wanted to get the command sergeant major, give me a desk side brief. Sergeant major walk in, I'm gonna give you a desk side brief and let you know what's going on. I said, no, hold off on that. You go back to your office, I'll be when I finish. I took 2 hours to talk to the soldiers and I found out what was going on. They only confirmed what I already suspected or knew. I went back, sat down and talked to them. I said, now, I don't need your desk side brief. Have you not deployed? Command Sergeant Major, I've been wanting to, never had the opportunity. Okay. I flew back to D.C. I called Norm Green, who was a mentor of General Kretzer, a great officer, made general officer and retired. He was at Fort Bliss. He had a brigade as a lieutenant colonel with 6 battalions under him. His command sergeant major used some racial and demeaning slurs toward blacks, Hispanic, and women, and I fired him. Left him vacant of a command sergeant major. Remember the guy in St. Louis? I called him, I said, hey, Command Sergeant Major, how you doing? You have a great day today? Oh, Command Sergeant Major, everything is going fine. I said, I want you to do something for me. I've already made a flight arrangement from St. Louis to Fort Bliss, Texas. You will fly me with a Lieutenant Colonel Norm Green and interview for a Command Sergeant Major position that taking a brigade of soldiers, about 5,000, to the desert. They was going to Ballard. If you know anything about Ballard, you know it's a kill zone. There was silence on the phone. I said, Command Sergeant Major, are you tracking? Are you with me? I said, Sergeant Major, don't miss that flight. Flew out Norm Green, interviewed him. Norm called me and said, Command Sergeant Major, he's raw, but I can work with him. They went to Ballard. I went over to visit him. He was sucking on a fireman hose. But when he came back, he came to the Pentagon, he sat down and talked to me. He said, thank you. Thank you for having me develop myself as a Command Sergeant Major. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve soldiers. I'm a better person because of what you did. I'm a better person because of her, because of him, because of him, because of Bob Woodford. But most of all, I'm a better soldier because of what you did and the effect you had on me. God bless you.
What a tremendous opportunity to have this gentleman speak to us. I always track what he says because I know it to be real, I know it to be true. And he's not going to give an accolade if it's not deserved. And that's the truth. And he and Major Kratz are the same. They can touch most of us in this room because of the spirit they have within themselves. And he's up next, he's up in a little while, but that's a man who most generals, folks say, I don't talk to generals, but he would talk to you and speak to you anytime he saw you anywhere. And that's an honor and a tribute to the men who have worked with him and to him as a man. And the story that he told you, and I'll be really quick, about the Scud's missiles, where he was right, it hit in 3 places. And we didn't have any Patriots around us at the time, because they hadn't come in yet. And when they hit, about 10, 15 minutes later, he called me. And we were living in an Expando van. And he called me and he said, y'all all right? I said, yeah, we all right. Y'all all right? Yeah, we all right. But for a man who had as much responsibility as he had to care about 2 guys that he knew, that he had directed, not really directed, but just suggested, make that true. He called and he checked on us. And that meant the world. Because it's hard to understand that people talk about caring, but they don't show it.
All right.